welcome back to Strange Minds 6. I'm your host Ruby, and today we're going to be getting back into the Octunnumi Part 22. Now, if you haven't heard the last chapter, please go back into the playlist of the Octunnumi, and it should be right there, Part 21. Or any of the other parts that you've missed. And definitely don't hesitate to share, like. If you haven't already, please subscribe. It would mean a lot to me. And just like that, we're gonna get right into it. This is The Octunnumi by Trevor Allen Frostbit. I'm not sure I should leave them. Mansfield looks nervous, back over his shoulder in the direction of the mecha horse, stabling, as Reg pushes him on in attempt to keep up with Trad, the professor, and Caddison in the maze of corridors. Although every inch of a medieval castle, the decor is anything but. The psychedelic patterns that are dubbed on the walls, ceilings, and floors battle with sculptures and what might be described as art of all shapes and sizes, dotted about the halls for prominence. Trad is more than a little disappointed, stopping to look at the particular large piece of art. Both he and Vivi perform the obligatory head leaning left, then right, before giving up trying to work out what it is and continuing after Caddison. No, this is not at all what he expected. Where is the dark, menacing atmosphere, the large echoey rooms with massively high ceilings, crisscrossed with heavy wooden beams? The stone floors, the flags, the thrones, the jesters, the table laden with sumptuous foods. He looks around at the bold art, designer lighting, abstract wall painting, and bright furniture. This is not how a medieval castle should look. Not at all. No way. Where, he wants to know, is the banqueting hall? Yes, he exclaims, with some relief as he turns off the corridor into the banqueting hall, the completely and absolutely, as it should be, medieval banqueting hall. Trad can hardly contain himself, and with open arms turns slowly, taking in the scene. This, he breathes, is more like it. VB, VB, more like it, more like it, VB echoes as she somersaults through the air. I take it you don't approve of the previous decor then? Caddison asks, indicating the halls they have just traveled through, as the rest of them stand and watch Trad's and VB's obvious pleasure. Cannot stand it, he replies without thinking. Oh. He stops suddenly. VB, on the other hand, oblivious, continues with her acrobatics. Sorry, nothing personal, Trad blushes as he grabs for VB. It's just grasping her foot and tugging her abruptly down, he shrugs at VB. Suffering from a bout of motion sickness, turns slightly green, holds her tummy, and clasps her hand over her mouth as she is unceremoniously shoved back into his breast pocket. You know, a loud burp emanates from his pocket. Yes, Caddison says. Yes, I do actually. The private halls. She gestures to the corridors, a preference of the previous Drognia. She grins. I shall be sure to tell the prince, Regent, that you agree with me. The arrival of the court jester, his motley cap bobbing and tinkling while he merely jigs his way across the room, brings Vivi bouncing out of her hidey hole and Cattison's posture into a downward slump as she looks skyward. Behind him, a mass of many people, shriveled, it would seem, by age, and yet ageless, averaging no more than 4 feet tall, flow through the doors carrying platters of food, goblets, bowls, and splashing jugs. Phoebe flits around above them, sniffing loudly as the food passes. Couples ready to dance follow behind 2 by 2, their medieval finery looking somewhat doll-like on such small frames, while the food-bearers smother the table and the dancers make grate on the floor. With deep bowls to each other, Vivi grabs an unsuspecting beau, smiling sweetly as she swiftly sidesteps his intended partner. The jester, having now reached the raised throne area, clears his throat and loudly begins, Our fair maiden returns from afar. Okay, people, Caddison shouts, cutting the jester off in mid-flow, clapping her hands to get everyone's attention. We've spoken about this, haven't we? And what did we agree, huh? When no one replies, she continues, We agreed that unless I specifically request a banquet, then what do we do? Anyone? Nothing, my lady. We do nothing. A small woman at the back calls out, We do nothing, that's right. She nods encouragingly. Apart from maybe a platter of flattening dough with squished filling, my lady? It's called a sandwich, Jones. Yes, all right. Apart from a sandwich. But, my lady, you have returned from your journey. Another distant voice joins in. From the village, she stretches. I've been gone less than 2 hours, hardly cause for celebration. But, my lady, you have guests. She sighs at the hopelessness of the situation. Okay, go ahead at this. Her voice is lost to the music striking up in the minstrel's gallery, triggering the dance group to begin. Defeated, she shrugs her apologies to the others, while the smiling food-bearers resume their work. Trying to gain some control, Caddison shouts above the jollity, But we are not feeding the entire Insomed, so let's keep it to a minimum, okay? Finally, when the food-bearers are satisfied that not another platter could possibly find room on the overflowing table, they take their leave, bowing as they come back out of the room. Caddison offers a fixed smile as they go ahead, waving their hands verily. And no dancing, she shouts to the enthusiastic group, still engaging in bowing and curtsying, arms linking and twirling, with the musicians and dancers winding down at different points. It makes for an ungainly jumble of noise and bodies as dancers and musicians make their way from the hall, forward and followed by the one jester, who bows as he backs out, closing the doors behind them, Phoebe waving sadly as they go. Sorry, Caddison sighs. They get a bit carried away. I think they feel somewhat cheated with having me as their Drugnia, not being much of a party person. Well, it's certainly impressive. Mansfield smiles at the spread of delights before them. Hesitating before tucking in, he asks, with a sidelong glance at Caddison, I take it that no animal has been mistreated, harmed, mutilated, or brutally murdered in the making of this banquet? What? Caddison asks. Of course not. Why would it? You hear stories, he says, about these other insomnids and their barbaric eating habits, and he turns away, muttering, You being from Fethris and all. Oh, right. I think you'll find that is only the Fethris insomad, Manfield. She smiles, and I assure you I have always been an omniscient being. Now, she says, addressing Reg and Trad, please tell me why the visit. Well, my dear, the professor starts. I'm sorry, but exactly why are you here? Caddison says. A slight cough interrupts the exchange, and for a moment no one can establish where the noise is coming from. My lady, please excuse the interruption. Only... Great, Trad mutters. What does he want? Beep, Trevor. Beep calls, and instantly regretting it, shrugs sheepishly at Trad's icy stare. Of course, Trevor. Caddison replies, What is it? And Trevor, Yes, my lady? No need for the my lady, okay? Yes, Miss Caddison. Of course. I have a transmission for Mr. Regis. Private? It is, Miss Caddison. However, I feel it is of importance to this gathering, so I might suggest it be seen and heard by you all. Without warning, the room is immersed in the images of battle, burning buildings all around them, people running and screaming. Trad ducks instinctively as a fireball hurls in his direction, and Vibi retreats to her home. Where is this? Caddison shouts above the noise. I'm not sure, Reg replies, looking around the scene for some clues. Figures can be seen running in the distance. As the building explodes, the image flickers, freezes, and they are plunged into silence. Trevor. Yes, Miss Caddison. It would appear that this insomid has been completely destroyed. A few of its inhabitants have managed to find safety, but it appears that many are still trapped. Do we know where this is and why? I'm afraid not, miss. My research, my work, gone. Edgar drops into a chair and stares vacantly at the table. Your? Caddison begins. It's my chosen world. Edgar says, absently waving in the direction of the destruction. My work, he repeats, gone. And the people, father? Let's not forget about the people, she says as she taps the air to dismiss the image. Oh, but wait. She turns to face her father. That's what you do, isn't it? You disregard people, even your own family. I had no idea. He mumbles. How has this happened? Can it be Nathaniel? Nate? Caddison steps forward. My Nate? It would appear that Mr. Nathaniel is trying to find your father, Miss Caddison. Nate, but he's in Fethris. How can he be responsible for... She gestures the dismissed image. It certainly looks that way, my dear, the professor states, moving toward her. I know it's hard, but who knows what Nathaniel has been up to. Do not speak of me. Do not speak to me of Nathaniel. She snaps. If Nate is responsible, then this is your doing. You who have driven. She stops, calming herself. Thanks to you, my brother left his family. I lost my best friend, and it sent our mother crazy. And what did you do? You disappeared into your work. I haven't seen you for years, and now you turn up all chatty. Cadison, my dear, it is no secret that Nathaniel has some hostility towards me. The professor tries to explain. And you blame him, Father? Perhaps it was disowning him, turning the Octunnumi against him, or maybe it was allowing his wife to die. Huh? She glares at the professor. But I cannot believe Nate. Cadison. Trad interrupts. Standing at the hall torrent, windows overlooking the lake, Phoebe at his side, hands and nose pressed against the glass. Does Nate know about this place? It's no secret that I have taken over as Drognia. She replies. I did send word, but as I said, I haven't seen him since. She joins Trad at the window. The once beautiful lake below, now dark and churning. But how? She mutters, as a thunderous crash sends vibrations throughout the room, and Phoebe to Trad's pocket. My lady! A guard shouts at the doors as they are flung open, and a number of them burst in. The causeway, my lady. It has been accessed. And the defenses? She asks. Activated, my lady. Then we are safe. We are not visible. The only point of access that are known to few, our defenses will protect us. She hesitates, watching as a ragged rocks smash from the water surrounding the castle and out into the lake, forming a razor-sharp barrier. So this is how you greet unwelcome visitors, the professor remarks as he approaches the window. Through the darkening mist swirling up from the lake, granite columns rise, creating stepping stones of increasing height. Smashing the rocks clear to allow a pathway through and direct access to the castle doors. No! Cadison gasps. It cannot be. Who would be able to bypass our measures? She questions, watching as the columns rise. I fear this is my doing. There is a direct access point from my world to this, he explains. What? Cadison demands. How? I've always known where you are, my dear. He smiles. Do you think I would not be keeping an eye on you? You're my daughter, after all. And mother, did you keep an eye on her? My lady. The guards interrupt, looking down to raise steps, winding their way through the rocky defenses, through the gloom. Large cumbersome movement can be detected as the glint of metal stomps into view. Who have you allowed into my world, father? Cadison asks, looking in dismay at the castle's rocky defenses being obliterated by the granite columns as they rise up. Not who. What? Mansfield says, squinting to get a better look. Well, they are big, that's for sure, Trad states. The size of the human, mechanical hybrids, lumbering from pillar to pillar, becoming clearer as slightly ahead of the looming figures The form of a large panther darts forward, bringing into sharp focus just how imposing its pursuers are. A figure barely visible straddles the cat, the rider's full body armor as black as the cat's fur. The visor on the head, protection closed against the thrashing waves. Are they human? Caddison asks, catching sight of the metal fused onto stripped bone, ligament visible. No, no, can't be. Mansfield replies, they're machines. Look at all the metal. They're both, Trad says flatly. Who would do such a thing? Caddison asks. Bolivian, Reg says, and looking to the professor, they look like Bolivian, sir. Just not as pretty. Yes, the professor replies, watching the advancing hybrids. This is clearly what Bolivian has been up to. So this is Bolivian's doing? Trad questions. This mutilation of the human body, it's Bolivian's work. My work, old chap. He replies, my work, in its most basic form. But, he says, watching the number of metal men increase, Bolivian hasn't the intelligence or ability to build those. No, he's used himself as a clone, which means there is a part of you in each of them, Reg states, which makes them a virtual tracking device, leading straight to me. The question is, who is operating them now? Caddison catches her breath as she watches the advancing hybrids. Pressing her forehead to the window, she whispers, get out of there now. Coming to an abrupt stop, the big cat swings around to face the oncoming clones. Sliding the blacked-out visor from his face, the rider glances up at the tower. No way, you've got to be kidding me. He mutters, what is he doing? Here. As they watch, the figure pulls a baton from his armor with a sharp flick of the wrist. He extends to his full length. Turning back to the advancing army, he slams one end of the staff down onto the granite surface, releasing an electrically charged into the stone. Yes, that will work, Caddison says, relieved. What is he trying to do? The professor asks, leaning closer to the window. He is saving us, she snaps. What? With that stick? Feeling the tremor beneath them, the metal hybrids hesitate, arms outstretched to maintain their balance as lightning bolts surge outward. The granite beneath them shakes violently and starts to give way. One after the other, the columns shatter and plunge back into the depths. Taking the invading metal army with them as the way through crumbles and disappears. Move! Caddison shouts at the window, startling the others. Sorry, she smiles weakly, looking back at the unfolding scene. But they will have to move so as not to be taken down as well. Turning, the cat covers the short distance to the castle doors, taking a few remaining columns in its stride, clearing them just as they too collapse to the water below. So, I had no idea you were so close. So, Reg says, as the cat and its rider arrive in the courtyard below. I had no idea that you guys were so close. Well, she blushes. And why? Trad cuts in. Why has he led those things? He hesitates, glancing back at the water. Here, literally to your door. Mansfield? She asks, addressing the little man. Would I be right in saying the machines we have just witnessed fall into the lake cannot survive water? Well, I'd have to have a closer look, he replies, but from what I just saw, the metal parts of he struggles to describe them, whatever they are, would be too heavy to stay afloat. So as long as your lake is deep, oh, it's deep, Caddison adds, then they would without a doubt sink. He nods. And the, well, living part would inevitably drown. The arrival of the sleek black lines of the cat the meandering entering and meandering his way into the room, padding soundlessly across the flags, interrupts the exchange. Prince Regent. Reg and Trad murmur as they offer slight bows. Phoebe flips from her hideaway, performs several twirls and spins, finishing with a flourish in an exaggerated bow. VBBV, Prince Regent, she mutters. Your Highness, the professor says, following suit. Realizing that he is the only one not showing respect, Mansfield quickly drops into a deep bow. Swinging his body off the cat, the rider jumps from the panther and, sprinting to Cassidy, sweeps her up in his arms as she rushes towards him. The cat, with an air of impatience, continues to walk by. I thought it was too late, he said, unaware of the others. And yet, Trad snaps as he and Reg step down from the turret alcove. You managed to bring an army of metal giants to Caddison's door? Slowly lowering Caddison to the ground, Eblon Albart Galvin offers a slight incline of his head. An old adversary of the Octunnumi, Eblon had been among the native peoples who were vehemently opposed to the creation of insomeds. Being used to having and taking all that they wished for, he had insisted that he and his people to roam free to the lands, all lands as they saw fit. The elves considered themselves to be of immense beauty and charm, and some agreed and welcomed their presence. Most, however, did not, seeing them, instead of self-assured, self-serving, and inherently self-centered, even among their own, others were of the opinion that their free roaming was of increasingly aggravation to many, and saw the insomeds as an opportunity to contain the elves, as well as protect them from the Amunerithian incense. The elves had retreated to Eradulus. I might say that name wrong, I apologize. Where, along with like-minded beings, they roamed to their heart's content. It was therefore somewhat of a surprise to know that they and their would have always be more close by, as they did not travel far from the protection of their own kind, wherein the very insomeds that they had not until this day set foot. But this was all history. What was not history, and with good reason, was the ongoing disregard both boys had for Eblon, not his people, just Eblon. "You have visitors, my lady," he says, nodding. "Forgive my inappropriate behavior." "Oh, I think we've got the picture, Eblon," Trad remarks. "You can drop the pretense." "VB, Eblon," BB repeats, flipping up and onto Trad's head. Not missing Trad's tone, Eblon nods. "Boys," he says. "Long time." Spotting VB, he inclines his head and winks, sending her into swooning backflips through the air. "And yet," Reg cuts in, not missing the exchange, "still too soon." "Yes." Eblon nods again. "Perhaps, though, now would be a time to put our differences on hold." "Differences?" Trad exclaims. "Is that, Trad?" Reg cuts in. "Not now." Trad sneers. "If I'd known you were anywhere near here." "And that is why you didn't," Eblon interrupts. "We have outstanding business, I agree, but there are more pressing issues we must address." Dismissing both boys, he turns to Edgar. "It's good to see you, sir, but I have grave news of our world." He hesitates, before adding, "Destroyed. There is nothing." "The research sentry?" "The first to go," the professor nods. "We did everything we could to save your work," Eblon stresses. "No matter, I have backups. No great loss." He pauses. "Well, of course. I mean..." He looks at the disheveled men before him. "I have no doubt you did everything you could." "I had no idea that you knew each other," Caddison says coldly, distancing herself from Eblon, "let alone be so well acquainted." "Caddison, he's your father." "I am well aware of who he is. I did not know that you were." "He asked for my help." "Help?" "To keep you safe." Caddison stammers with rage. "I keep me safe? Me? Caddison," Reg interrupts. "I realize that there are many things each of us would like to tackle right now." He throws a cutting look at Eblon. "But I really think we should go." "Go?" she asks. "Why?" "My insomed," Eblon says. "We..." He glances to the panther, now draped on the throne, enjoying a neck scratch from VB, managed to get out through the only access point that they did not control. "But they will have control of it now," Reg states. "Without a doubt." Eblon agrees. "And it would lead directly to here," Caddison mutters, glancing at her father. "But my people will be evacuated to the Octunnumi." "All of them? You have my word." "Then yes, perhaps we should go," she says, glancing back at the window before gesturing to the new arrivals. "Your Highness," she says, "we should make haste." "Trevor." "Yes, Mr. Regis. Activate the evacuation." "Already done, sir." "I'm going to get Nell and Estrine," Mansfield shouts as he follows the others towards the door. "No need, Mr. Mansfield, sir. I took the liberty of removing them from the dismail quarters on arrival, sir." "You're my hero, Trevor." Mansfield smiles. "You are too kind, sir." "Oh yeah," Trad mocks. "Get the lumps of metal out of the way of danger before anything else, why don't you?" "Veeb." "Hey!" "Veeb!" exclaims from across the room. Mr. Tradent, have I ever stood by when danger threatens? VB, I tried. VB, I Trad calls after VB, who, having turned her back on him, strides out of the room. No, no, I have not. It would be more than my jobs. But still, the mech horse. Please, sir, I was... Okay, you two. Can you go back to not talking to each other? Reg sighs. We have more important things to deal with right now. Fine. As you wish, Mr. Regis. Great. Shall we? Reg indicates to the professor. Right behind you, old chap. He mutters. Right behind you. Reg nods as he, Mansfield, and Trad leave the room. Returning to the window, the professor looks down at the remains of the crumbled crossway. Professor? He shouts back. Reg shouts back to him from the door. Yes, old chap, coming. Studying the rippling water's edge, a smile twitches at the corner of his mouth as one by one the army of the hybrids begin to pull themselves out of the water. Professor! Yes, yes. He smiles broadly before turning and joining the others. And that's the end of this chapter. See, I truly do think that the professor has something that he's hiding, and I really do feel like he just doesn't care. He's all in it for the work. That's honestly what I think. But definitely tune in next time, and let's see what happens. Let's see if the professor really is the bad guy. Because, I mean, his own daughter and son view him as the bad guy. So I honestly wouldn't blame them. But this is Ruby signing off, and I hope that you guys like this chapter. And I am signing off now.